Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today I wanted to talk to you all about William the Conqueror. I don't know if you can see this, my Kobo's kind of dull, but this is Marc Morris's biography of William the Conqueror. It's called William One. It's part of the Penguin Monarchs series, which I'm not sure if it's complete, but the Penguin Monarch series is supposed to have an entry between maybe 100, 150 pages on each English monarch that has ever existed. From, do they start with Alfred the Great? I'm not sure. But it goes all the way up to Elizabeth II. I don't think Charles III, I think is the current monarch of England. I don't think he has an entry yet because he's only just started his reign a couple years ago. But uh, before I get into William, what am I reading right now? Reading The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson. It's kind of a slog to get through. I'm only 400 pages in, and it is. I wish it was better. That's all I'll say about it for now. Maybe it'll pick up in the coming chapters. And also, surprise out of nowhere, I read Nuclear War by Annie Jacobsen. It's a fictional scenario where she takes us through what could happen in nuclear war using a lot of sources who are in the know about this kind of thing, so it should be fairly accurate. I thought this book was horrifying, but Jacobson's prose sucks, and I might make a video on this book, so I'm not gonna speak on it further, but I won't say I enjoyed reading the book because it was terrible to get through, but I thought that it was powerful and scary. It was scarier than any horror book I've ever read or any horror movie that I've ever seen. So, yeah. All right. Enough yapping. We're going to go to William One. So, this Penguin Monarch's biography by Marc Morris. Morris he's a decently popular historian of the English. I've talked about him previously on this channel with his history book on the Anglo-Saxons. They're, however, like 500 years of prominence, 600 years after they come over from Germany, start settling in the south, the east of England, and then expanding into all the kingdoms, the Heptarchy and the other ones. And the Anglo-Saxons were in power or in power flux, fighting the Vikings up until 1066 with our boy Willie the Bastard. So, I enjoyed Marc Morris's The Anglo-Saxons. It's tough to write broad history like that covers such a large swath of time. But I thought Morris did a good job with it. So I was excited to pick up this William One biography by Morris, despite its more minute scope. It still was a good read. I definitely would recommend this biography to anybody who wants to learn about William the Conqueror. We know 1066, William sailed the ocean blue, the channel blue, and, well, go back to the beginning. Not the beginning, but William the Conqueror lives in Normandy, in France, on the coast. He was a bastard, son of the Duke of Normandy, Robert. Robert didn't have any legitimate children, so William was named heir before Robert went on a pilgrimage to Jerusalem. Robert kicked the bucket after visiting all the holy sites, and William became heir, or William became duke at a very young age. And fast forward a lot, William, being the Duke of Normandy, invades England, kills the Anglo-Saxon king of England, and William becomes king of England in 1066. He won the Battle of Hastings. And after that, there's a line of Norman rulers before we get into some other hijinks. So that's a horrible summary, but it's what happened. And Marc Morris, I think, does a good job of presenting both the good and the bad of William. I know it must be cliche to call a good biography balanced, but this is a balanced work. I have conflicting opinions about William the Conqueror, and I know a lot of people are like, that French bastard, like he just came into England and usurped the throne and just killed everybody. And sure, he may have done some of those things, but and we're going to get a little technical here, so if you're not into English history, you can tune this out. But I personally think that the Godwin family of this era, from Earl Godwin and Harold Godwinson, I think that Godwin family is really sinister. And I don't like them from anything I've read about them. And I know sources were a little suspect back then, with bias and such, but I get this icky feeling from the Godwin family. And I know William came in, he invaded, and he slaughtered. But was he the worst thing that could have happened to England? That's not for me to say. But we have a line of Anglo-Saxon kings, the House of Wessex, stretching back to Alfred the Great, but back to, I believe, Cerderic was the founder, Cerderic, I don't know how to say it, founder of the House of Wessex. But the kings of Wessex unified England. Alfred the Great, Edward the Elder, Ethelstan. Skip a few of those no-name guys, then get to Edgar the Peaceful and Ethelred the Unready. But this is a whole line of sons and nephews and such of the House of Wessex. You go from Ethelred, there's some Danish stuff that goes on in between, where Earl Godwin sides with the Danish. He's a turncoat. But after the whole Danish debacle and Harold Harefoot and Harthacnut, who could have done better, Edward the Confessor becomes King of England again in 1042, I believe. And Edward is of the House of Wessex. He's the son of Ethelred the Unready and Emma of Normandy, who her first marriage was to Ethelred. So this makes Edward the Confessor, the Anglo-Saxon king, half Norman, and there's also the fact that Edward the Confessor spent 25 years exiled in Normandy, which, well, that was because of the Danish thing. We all know the Danish thing. But because of all this, I see William's point in possibly deserving the throne. Do I think a Norman should have come in and just become king of the English? No, I don't think so. But if the alternative is the Godwin family. I don't think William is totally in the wrong here. It's not like Harold Godwinson, who succeeded Edward the Confessor upon his death in January of 1066. It's not like Harold Godwinson was Edward the Confessor's son or nephew or anything. Edward the Confessor did not have children. And who was his wife? His wife was Edith Godwin, daughter, or Edith, son of Earl Godwin and sister of Harold Godwinson. And I think, this is my personal opinion, I think it wasn't any religious duty or anything that made Edward not have kids with Edith. And it wasn't that he was sterile. I think he just wanted to spite the Godwin family because he hated them so much. And I think that he didn't have kids with Edith so that there would not be a Godwin on the throne. That's what I think. But that was a long tangent. Who should have been King of England in 1066 after Edward died? The jury's still out for me. But I don't think William was all bad. That's my admission here. So there's that. Also, let's talk about the book itself. Informative, as I said earlier, balanced. I really appreciated how Morris dove into William's bastardhood. Is that a word? Bastardhood? But it really puts a lot of things into perspective of this chip on William's shoulder that he had, I think, since childhood in his father dying when William was very young and ascending to this, not a throne, whatever the Duke throne, ascending to this dukedom while everybody around him, these are all conniving adults who are trying to take the throne or the dukedom for themselves or trying to align themselves as the top advisors or the puppet rulers of Normandy. And it really demonstrates how William had a cutthroat childhood and he had to grow up so quickly. And a lot of his close advisors were assassinated. I think one was even, his throat was slit while he was in the same room as William sleeping. So you have this kid who grows up in this really dangerous environment, and once he becomes a man, he actually does pretty well. He drives off his enemies with a little help from the King of France. He puts down a lot of rebellions. He's quite vicious, even before he turns 20. He's cutting off people's hands and feet. So not a guy you would really like to trifle with. And this bastardom is present throughout. William's always trying to gain papal or religious approval, like official approval, trying to legitimize things. And Morris points out that's probably because he had the bastard chip on his shoulder, which I had never really considered before. I know he has the moniker William the Bastard, but I'd never actually thought of that as something that shaped him. So I thought that was interesting. Another part was, as I mentioned earlier, Edward the Confessor's Norman side and possible connections he might have had to William while serving those 25 years of exile in Normandy. That was interesting, but we don't have a lot of info on what actually went down at that time. So no need to speculate further at this point. But yeah, we also can't ignore the brutal repression that William had to go through or caused in England following the Norman conquest. There's something, if you've heard of it, called the harrying of the North, where the north of England was causing a little bit of trouble, and William put his foot down and killed a ton of people, either by slaughter or starving them out. Maybe 100,000 deaths or something, which for that time period, a lot of death. So not this benign guy, for sure. I'm not defending him, but I think if you read this biography, if you're interested in William or 1066, you're gonna get what you need to know, and it's gonna be a decent read. Morris, I have no problems with him as a historian, and no issues with his writing style as well. I'm not going to say it's simple, but it gets everything across in a good and concise way. This book took me like 90 to 120 minutes to read. It's really short, but I think it's a really solid biography of William the Conqueror. So yeah, this is a recommend for me. I gave it like 4 stars out of 5. It gets the job done, and it's not offensive. So, yep. Part of my 1066 reading project, which is ongoing. Yeah, let me know if you know of any other William the Conqueror books or articles or such that I could read. Let me know if I might be misinterpreting some of these events. I'm getting a better grasp as I go along. Maybe there's some pro Godwin content that I could consume to try and even out the scales a little, but for now I'm still suspicious of Earl Godwin and his offspring. So maybe William had a point. Who knows?